Hello, my name is Jonathan Forster and welcome to the Multi-Story Thinking Podcast. I'm an interior designer and educator. My job is to improve quality of life and productivity by helping people to create beautiful and practical spaces to live and work in. The Multi-Story Thinking Podcast takes an educational slant to the interior design world. So sit back, relax as we help unravel the mysteries of interior design. Simon is an interior designer and founder of Design Career Consulting. A graduate of interior design from Nottingham Trent University, Simon has consulted on the production of projects across a variety of creative disciplines and sectors. He's gained his working knowledge and experience through employment with several leading architectural and interior design practices in London, and his role within recruitment has helped people to establish and develop their career paths across all areas of interior design. I spoke to Simon via Zoom in autumn 2020. In this episode, we discover the importance of collaboration, why you should build a network of contacts, how a career in design helped shape his expertise in recruitment, how communication can break down prejudice and encourage inclusion and team cohesion, and why it's good to walk the streets with a pack of postcards. What I was really kind of fascinated about what you've done, because I've known you quite a long time, sort of, I was in the, year below you possibly at Trent, and you were on a different course. But so I've known of you or known you for quite a long time. But what's really struck me is the breadth of the work that you've done since you graduated, the different types of jobs, and I suppose that opens up the opportunities for what one can possibly do, having studied interior design. Once you leave, you seem to have done quite a lot of everything, and just wondered how that had all panned out, and whether that was a plan at the start or has it just sort of organically happened.
I suppose that I always had an interest in art, and I remember building sort of little model houses and shoeboxes and things like that. So I just sort of really developed my interest a bit further, and I went to Middlesex Polytechnic and did an art foundation course. So for that 1 year, I knew what I would be doing, because you try lots of different things, pottery and drawing and all sorts of different things. And that was great. And it meant that I could potentially have gone on to Middlesex to do my interior design degree. But at the time, I was really keen to leave home, and I discovered that there were other courses and places to do the interior design degree. I looked at Kingston, I looked at Nottingham, and Nottingham appealed. I'd never been there before. It was a 4-year course, so it meant it had a 1 year sort of sandwich, they called it, 1 year work experience during the course. So that appealed to me massively. And I applied and I got in, and it was great. And it also meant that I saw other parts of the country I hadn't been to. So as a Londoner, I was exploring other parts of the UK, like Newcastle, Derby, Leicester, Loughborough, Sheffield. And as a student, that's great. It meant that I had lots of friends. I went to different places. I had a really good time when I was a student. So it all started from there. But then when I came back to London after doing my degree, I worked for interior designers, and that was mainly in commercial offices. From there, I worked in different practices, because at the time, it was quite easy in some ways to get work. There's one practice I worked for in Kensington, and they were a very big architectural practice, but within that, they had about 25 interior designers. So I was one of the team of interior designers. They called us Fluffies. It was great because we did work on a variety of projects, worked on offices and other types of things like that. It was because I worked in a number of different companies that I was able to gain different types of experience over my career.
So that was, you got a bit of experience under your belt, and then you set up your own business with your own clients.
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't. That's the sort of short version. I mean, I kind of worked in the late 80s as an interior designer, as I say, different practices. My role was made redundant in the early 90s, and that was a catalyst for me freelancing for about 4 years or so. And it was that period where I gained lots of experience because I worked with different companies. Either I was just brought in to do some space planning or put together a concept or a presentation or do some detailing, but it meant that I worked at different places, so I gained confidence in what I could do and my abilities. I increased my network of contacts, and I was able to work with different companies, which is a good learning curve because you get to see how companies practice, and obviously the process is similar, but the results are different.
You'd spent some time working with other companies, and then you took what many people might have thought was a sideways step into a position with Adrem.
I had quite time to convince them that it was something I really wanted to do, because they said, well, you're a designer, you've been doing it for a while, why don't you continue? And I said, no, I really want to go into a recruitment role because I have experience of working in these different practices, therefore my knowledge is actually quite detailed, and it would be good for candidates to know about those companies. So I joined Adrem in the mid-90s, and that was great. And it was a smaller company then, and it was almost like a family. It was based in the West End, and it was when recruitment was probably at its peak. You had lots of very good clients. There were people that were good candidates. There was a really, really good time to be in recruitment in the mid-90s. So I enjoyed it. It's very different to design because it is a sales-led role, but you are dealing with creative people, and you're getting to see how practices work because you go and see the clients.
It must be about building relationships there and understanding people.
Yes, yeah, and being empathetic and really listening to people and what their goals and stories and aims are. So I became very good at that, and I've obviously, read hundreds and hundreds of CVs. It was quite good to feel that you had some positive influence in people's careers, and that's something that I've kept with me, in that you can see how people might have potential, and therefore you're helping them with their growth and their development. So you're putting them into a company that you feel would be right for them in all sorts of ways: their personality, what they can offer, their experience, their skills, their knowledge. So that was very rewarding, very satisfying. I left, but I still stayed within the recruitment sector, and I went to a number of different agencies. It was never the same, actually. It wasn't as good as when I was at Adrem. And one of the roles that I did have that was very good, though, was a fixed-term contract working within Fitch, and that's when they were in Smithfield. And that was great because I helped them rationalise their whole recruitment programme and got them to make sure that the people that they were taking on were the right people, but also they weren't using like 20 agencies. I would be involved in the recruitment of people from a very junior level up to a director. And it was great. Really enjoyed that. Really good vibe. A very positive, energetic company with lots of characters.
It must have been a very exciting period.
It was, and it was great to be on the other side, as in being in-house, working with a really respected design agency, and see how that worked. And then I had an accident. It wasn't when I was at Fitch. I was working Price Jameson. I was on my scooter. They were based in the West End. Again, I was working with a really nice team of people. I was knocked off my scooter and ended up in hospital, and then on crutches. And that really was a turning point for me in every sense, because I just suddenly thought, hang on a minute, maybe I should just take a step back and think, I'm not really sure. Should I carry on in recruitment? Should I do something else? I had some time off. I left that agency. I had time off to recover. I was able to do so. I had support from family and friends, etc., and partner. It just made me think a little bit deeper about what I wanted to do. And then I decided, I will set up my own interior design company. I initially started working with residential clients. I did a small bathroom for a friend, and I told everybody that I changed and I was launching myself as a designer again, but doing it for myself. And that was the key. It was just making sure people knew what you were doing. And because there was no LinkedIn at that stage, and social media didn't really exist, so it was word of mouth. And one thing I did to gain clients, and it really worked, was I printed lots of postcards, and I think I had 400 postcards. So I literally posted through 400 houses. I walked around the streets of London, going to areas where I thought I would be able to get some work, residential interiors work. And one out of those 400 was a client that I then had for about 5 or 6 years, because I was in the right place at the right time. She liked the idea that I, being quite entrepreneurial, and she gave me work, and it just escalated from there. It was a lot of work, and I had a small team of people working with me, and I initially started working from home, and then eventually I ended up in a shared studio in Shoreditch. So that was a really good location to be as well. So from 2002 to 12 years later, that's when I was running my own company. And at the time, as I said, I started with interiors for residential clients, but then I rebranded and became Simon Hamilton and Associates, and that was to attract commercial clients and do more commercial work. So it's like hotel, restaurant, or offices. And it worked, and it was really good, really successful.
That story of the postcard delivery, it reminds me, I think we did that, the same sort of thing. And that's the sort of legwork you had to put in.
Literally.
Before the days of, I don't suppose you'd even have a mobile phone, would you? It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, I think I did have a mobile, but yeah, you literally had to walk around and, show people what you could do. And a postcard was a good thing because I had a picture of a project that I had completed on it and a very small portfolio. It had a website as well. It was a very basic website. So when people got the postcard, they could at least look at some images and then follow up from there.
So that took you back into design, and you did that for another, 10 to 12 years?
Yeah.
And
whilst I was doing that, I was then aware of the BIDA then. It's now BIID.
How did you come across that group then?
Well, I think it's because they were an association when I first heard about them, and their whole remit was to encourage and improve the professionalism of interior design. And the way I work is always trying to get better and improve what I do. So I think it was through a friend. I'm not even sure how I heard about the BIDA initially, and possibly because of networking and going to events a lot, and you hear about things like that. So I thought, this is a really good organisation. They seem to be have a real focus and high standard. And I got involved more and more because I thought this is a good body of people that are doing things that are relevant and interesting to me, and they're trying to improve things. Because unlike architects, interior designers don't have the same recognition. It's not established profession in terms, when you compare it to architecture. Architecture's been around for centuries, and you have RIBA, and everybody knows and understands what an architect does. People still don't necessarily understand what an interior designer does. They might see a magazine and think, an interior designer is somebody who just decorates, or somebody who just, might choose soft furnishing and things like that. But it's so much more involved, and it is a profession that has substance. So I liked that. I liked what they were about. I became the international director, and I was international director. It was a voluntary role. At the time, I managed to balance running my own company as well as volunteering for BIID, because I think it was really worthwhile. It was during the period when they were changing from an association to an institute. So it was a really pivotal moment in their history. My role as international director was really to promote the institute on a global platform, going to different places around the world, talking about the BIID, representing designers, taking a team of designers with me. So we went to different places like Delhi, Tokyo, Kyoto, Los Angeles, Chicago, Moscow. And what I realised is that British design is really respected all around the world. I think that comes down to the education and the professionalism and the expertise that you get in the UK. Going to different countries and seeing how they do it was also a real insight to the kind of level of education and design ability. And it was very, very productive. It was a really good role to have, because I was also on the board of directors. So, talking about the policies of the BIID and how you can sort of improve and change things for members. So I really enjoyed that.
That period, I think that's when, more or less, when I came aware of the BIID, was quite productive in establishing the professional credentials of interior design and raising the profile. You must have been involved in a bit of that. And what was the role? What was the objectives of the actual visits to other countries then?
Well, it was to potentially increase the membership. That was one thing, because they do have international members. And it was also to kind of extend the reach of the institute in terms of showing off, I suppose, what we do in the UK and creating a bigger network. And you learn from that as well. That was one thing that you do, and we did have, is that you learn from other cultures and other design practices and methods. And that's something I really wanted to sort of bring into the institute. So it wasn't just what you know in the UK, but what you can learn from other places.
You were running your business at the same time as that, and you returned to that from the recruitment sector. How would you describe the changes in your business or the way in which you were working when you set up your own practice?
Things changed quite a lot from when I set it up to when I kind of closed it, because it was a different marketplace in terms of the clients that you worked with. As I said, I started in the residential market in 2002, and so obviously there was competition, but I luckily had a good network of people that I built up over the years, and one of those people, Nicholas Eyre, Home Fusion, was a property search agent, so he would find properties for his clients and then he'd recommend me as the interior designer. So we had a really good relationship, and I got some work through him, but I was also able to use my website and other methods to promote myself. So obviously the more you do work, the more you can promote yourself. And I was quite productive, or proactive I should say, in terms of getting exposure in magazines and trying to write articles. And again, this is way before social media really took off. So getting exposure through that, and the BIID or BIDA then, it did help, because they would have client referrals. They had a magazine, so I appeared in the magazine, and that was also really good to promote myself as a designer, and it worked for other designers, other members as well. They were really supportive in going to events that they had, and I also got involved in sort of panel discussions and different design events. So I was used to travelling to different design events like Milan and other ones that were in London and then in Chicago and in Paris. And some of those events I became somebody that was involved in different talks and discussions. So that also helped me in terms of getting work. And then, as I say, when I rebranded to Simon Hamilton Associates, that was deliberately to get more commercial clients. So I started off doing some small commercial office jobs. They were quite good. I had some amazing clients as well, really good. And then it changed there was a financial crash, 2008, but I already had projects that were continuing. So the effect didn't really happen until 2009 for me. And then as 2010, 11, etc. came along, it seemed that the marketplace had changed because of the financial crash. There were less clients around. The expectation of clients changed, and certainly on the residential market, it was much tougher to get those sort of clients. I had been working with my key client for a number of years by that time, so she had recommended me to her siblings and other relatives and managing director, and so I was able to get lots of work from there. But that was always going to come to an end at some point. I was always in touch with Adrian, even though I wasn't working there. They had an opportunity that had come up because they wanted to expand to the Far East in Hong Kong. And I'd always liked the idea of working abroad. And this just seemed like a very good solution, where I would be working for a company that I knew well. I'd be going back to recruitment, but I'd be the director and founder of their Hong Kong office, and I would take things in a new direction for them. So that was very, very exciting, and the timing was right. So it was just a really good opportunity to go to Hong Kong. it didn't quite work out as I'd hoped.
Did you not like the climate over there then? Or?
No, that wasn't it. I loved the climate. The climate was fantastic. The people, the atmosphere. It's just that if you're trying to do business in another country that is 7 or 8 hours time difference, you really need to be there. I was trying to do business with my clients in Hong Kong and other parts of Asia, Singapore as well, from London, which was really tough. For a whole year, I tried to. It's extremely difficult. I went over to Hong Kong. When you were there, it was different because you were seeing people face to face. You bump into people in the street, and I could see myself living there. I even looked at office space. I looked at apartments. I did all the research. I just couldn't get traction. There wasn't enough money coming in from me trying to work. But it was disappointing it didn't work out, and I put so much energy into it, getting up super early every day just to connect with Hong Kong. But of course, it was already the afternoon for them. And then I thought, well, if I'm in a recruitment agency, I need them to help me get a job.
It's good that you can use their skills to find yourself a job, even if you were leaving them. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, it just seemed obvious. You're thinking, hang on a minute, if I need a job and I work for a recruitment agency, I may as well just ask my colleagues, and they'll benefit from it, and I'll benefit. They were able to place me in a role, and I went to Interface 2015 and never run a showroom before. They wanted somebody to come in to manage the showroom, but also to oversee the refurbishment of the showroom, which was going to be a huge, huge deal. The concept was just stunning. I had a brilliant architect on board, so I was going to be the person that was leading the design team. So we did that. It was a really good start. And then June 2016 happened.
That was the Brexit announcement.
That was the reason that was given for it, because Brexit obviously meant that they didn't know what was going to happen to the European market or London. I was then the manager still of the showroom, but without the prospect of it being refurbished, what it really needed, and without all of that design input. So the reason that role was so interesting to me is because I was still involved in design again, but not being the person that was creating the drawing, but being involved in the process. And then I ended up working with Matteo Bianchi. He'd actually been an employee of mine a long time ago when I had my company. He brought a project to me. It's a hotel in Venice. And he's always been a friend of mine. And I was talking to him and saying, it'd be nice to be able to work together again. And his office manager left very abruptly. And I said, I can come and help out for you and see, what I can do. On a very informal basis, I ended up helping out with the studio, and then that multiplied and snowballed, and I ended up doing more and more, and I was writing press releases, and I was looking after the social media accounts, and I was getting Matteo speaking positions and roles in different design events, and doing his marketing. So that was something that wasn't planned at all, and it was good to be working with someone that I knew very well and not be the person necessarily that was the name at the top of the door.
That's amazing. So those connections that you've made, I mean, this is a characteristic of your career, is that you've made really good connections along the way that you've been able to call upon later on in your life.
Yes, and it's funny because I know at the beginning you're saying, has my career been planned? And it was never planned. And I always thought, it's a shame that I'm not like X or Y. And I look at them, they're a director, they're doing this, they've got this amazing career, they become MD of such and such or CEO, etc. But now I look back and I think, well, even though I didn't have that sort of ladder or staircase career, mine's much more haphazard. I've been able to, as you say, create good relationships with people throughout my career, whatever it's been, whether it's been in recruitment or design, marketing and all sorts of things, and work with people that I enjoy working with and respect and have learned from, and keep those relationships going, but never really calculating, that person's going to be useful for me. It's just that they're a friend and you have a casual conversation and things develop from there. So that has been something that I've enjoyed, especially now looking back. I think, I'm really glad I've worked in this place and that place and learned this and done this and experimented and tried this and had hopes and dreams to be somewhere, and then they haven't worked out, but they haven't discouraged me from continuing. And now I'm in a position where I can enjoy that and almost take on board just the things that I'm really interested in, things that I feel that I can be good at, and make the most of it. So I'm not trying to do lots and lots of different things, but I have learned a lot along the way.
You've set yourself up now as design career consulting, which amalgamates lots of your experience in with the aim of helping students. Well, tell me a bit more.
Tell you a bit more about it, because this is something that has happened over time. Even though it says, officially on my CV and LinkedIn, it's since September. It's actually something that I've been involved in for a while, because I've been a visiting tutor at different places like the Interior Design School, Central St Martin's, Instituto Marangoni. I've gathered skills in terms of mentoring students and talking to people about their CV, about their portfolios, as well as all my recruitment experience. I've now put that formally, in a way, together and decided that, yes, I will set up a company, a website that is very much dedicated to that. I'm helping designers that are generally interior designers, because that's my specialization, but they can be students, so they're people that are already on courses, or they could be people that are changing careers, so people that might have been accountants or lawyers or any other field that want to become interior designers, and give them advice as practical, as realistic advice about their CVs, about how they could prepare and write a good CV, what's expected, how you can put together a very good portfolio, and what you should know about interviews. Because I've been on lots of interviews in terms of me interviewing people for clients as a recruiter, but also I've been to interviews myself in terms of when I've been looking for a job, and I've been on the other side where I've been employing people. I know from different aspects what comes across well and what doesn't. So I've decided that that's something that I can share my knowledge with a number of people. And I can do it for groups as well, a small group of people. And I mean, at the moment, I'm working with, again, the Interior Design School and their students, and giving them advice about their CVs, because some of the courses I realised throughout education in the UK don't necessarily have a section where they give students time to think about the next step after they've graduated, to think about preparing for the world of work.
The way you share that knowledge has been fantastic and really useful for students and established professionals. And you've been cropping up on various other platforms, Design Dialogue, and also podcasts.
So I'm involved in things that really are about sharing information, about improving things. And one of those things is diversity and inclusion. That's something that's quite key to me, because I've experienced racism and inequality throughout my career. I might come across as somebody that's quite positive, and I've done a lot of things and I've been able to achieve things, but that hasn't always been the case. And what I want to do is to encourage other designers to have a platform and have a voice. So I'm in conversation with a number of different designers, and it's come about because I was invited to be part of the Great Indoors podcast with Sophie Robinson and Kate Watson-Smythe, and that was a fantastic opportunity, because there were a number of other designers who were non-white who were talking about their experiences within the design industry within the UK, which were astounding and saddening and alarming, but also a little bit familiar, unfortunately. I'm trying to help, I suppose, educate people that it doesn't have to be like that, and it shouldn't be like that. There is now time for change. And that's obviously related to what's going on politically and socially in this country and other parts of the world. So I'm really, really excited about what I can contribute to that.
When you're thinking about the design world, I suppose, well, from my perspective, I'm middle-aged white. I haven't had the same experience, but maybe I might be thinking that the design industry is a bit more enlightened and perhaps hasn't got those kind of underlying issues. But actually, from watching some of the discussions, it's clear that there are these sort of things going on in every aspect of society. And it's not just the high-profile things. We all need to really examine what's going on in our own industry.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Yes, you would think that design is creative, it's collaborative. people are perhaps more liberal, open-minded, accepting, all of those positive things. But yet there are people that are prejudiced, and we all have prejudices, which we may or may not be aware of. But some of those have definitely been quite pointed and unreasonable and held people back. And when I've been to lots of design events, and I've been to numerous over the years in all sorts of places and countries, there are times when I've thought, why am I the only non-white person here? There must be other designers that are like me. And it's that lack of representation that has been alarming. I've been very, accepted by the people I've worked with and people I've worked for, and I've enjoyed working within teams or on my own, etc. And it's not that has been a negative thing. It's just that there don't seem to be lots of role models and lots of people that you think, oh yes, there's somebody on a panel discussion that is representative of the design market, but also representative of the population. There's somebody that's talking, or written about in a magazine. There's just this lack of exposure and visibility, and that's what I'm hoping will change, because it does need to change. There is the interest in it, there is the drive for it, and there are people who are going to sort of take that action to make it happen.
I think it's really encouraging to have that debate. Certainly in terms of recruitment at the University of Plymouth, we are looking at all our comms and our websites to see whether we've got a kind of diverse picture of the opportunities there. But it's very hard to hone in on what's going to make a difference. Have you got any views on the types of things that we need to be doing to improve things?
Well, I think the first thing is literally identifying people who are from these different groups so that they are part of the conversation initially. So inclusion, and that's inclusion from all different sectors.
I think as designers, that sort of awareness should be second nature in terms of the skill sets we have, in terms of interrogating a problem. What are the constraints, what are the things we need to consider? I guess it's just about being a bit more mindful of that.
It's not that they're necessarily being deliberately exclusive, it's just that they haven't consciously thought, yes, we do need to include everyone in this discussion. In fact, how is our organisation set up, and who are we representing? Are the clients that we have representative of the kind of mix of work that we want? Is our working team representative of the kind of people we want within that team? And it's about looking within the practice, I think, if you're a design practice, and looking around the office and thinking, oh, right, okay, yes, we've all got different nationalities, we have different languages, we're male and female, etc. Seeing that there is some sort of inclusion and cohesion to it. And when I was working in one practice, I introduced a sort of protocol where everybody would be given an opportunity to give a presentation. But the presentation could be about anything. So it could be about your dog, or it could be about your trip to Mexico, or it could be about a project. And that was good because it meant that everybody, no matter what level they were in the company, had an opportunity to talk to everybody else about what interests them. It was quite revealing, because then you find out that somebody that you sat next to was one of the architects, was really into breakdancing, and you had no idea about that. So it's inclusion in that way as well. It's not just about, okay, we need to include the non-white people. It's about including people in terms of their views, their interests, and what that can bring to a practice, an organisation, how it might attract other people, how it would increase the diversity.
That sounds really good, that. It's sort of opening up the way you're thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, with your podcast, multi-story thinking is absolutely relevant.
Quite right. Yes. Yes, despite the name, I'm often guilty of some pretty closed thinking. It's in our nature, isn't it, to just do what we're used to. I guess that's the thing, is to challenge people to think differently, and lots of different levels, like you say, and creating those opportunities for discourse and understanding.
Yes, and also to ensure that people feel comfortable, they feel that they have a platform or they're allowed to contribute, and that's what I was trying to do when I said to the whole team, yes, everyone's going to do a presentation. We have it once every 2 weeks on a Thursday. We have drinks and food, so it was encouraging everybody from a junior to a director and associate to contribute and have their moment, and it was great. Some people were shy, but they learned that actually once they got going, they really got into it, and it was quite good fun. And other people, it was good practice for them because then they could realise, oh yes, this is what it's like to present to a team or a client, etc. As I say, you discover things about people that you wouldn't necessarily know. It's really, really enlightening. That's something that I would encourage lots of practices to do. Get your teams together and find out what people are interested in, and it doesn't have to be related to anything creative. It can be all sorts of things.
Yeah, that sounds really refreshing. I like that. I suppose that the institutional racism elements of organisations which are there, whether consciously or not, are slightly more difficult to break down. I know that just the task of reviewing all the images on the Plymouth website in itself is a challenge and a half, really. We tend to have lots of pictures of men in workshops and girls in sort of soft sewing environments, if you like, which is your classic sort of stereotype, isn't it? And that's just the start of it, in terms of creating a broader visual representation. But then you've got to tackle those mechanisms that are perhaps and thought processes within recruitment or selection of whatever, that are slightly more ingrained and less obvious possibly to
yeah and it will be a long process, but I think that even having this discussion, it means that people are conscious. I think the first thing is to make people aware that this is something that is an issue. It needs to be discussed. There is no overnight cure. As long as people are aware and talking about it, it's a start. And then we can kind of come together and develop things. And there's some things that might work and some things that might not. But it's about having discussions that are meaningful and having some sort of action plan that you can put in place that is realistic. And it may be something that is a long period. It might have to take a while, or there could be very quick things that can be done, like you say, changing images on websites. That's something that's very quick and easy to do and can definitely represent a university. And it's also good for the university or institution or organisation in terms of reflecting the people that are there and the people they want to be there and attracting those people. So that being diverse and being inclusive is always going to be a good thing, because that is the way the world really is. We are not all the same, and that should be represented, particularly in education.
Yeah, I agree with that. Have you got any advice for students currently studying and ways in which they might think about dealing with the situation we're under during the lockdown?
I would say students, particularly students, shouldn't be discouraged, because this year is going to be, I know, one of the most difficult years. Shouldn't be discouraged by not feeling like they have the same opportunities as other students of the past, but they should feel that now is a different time and to make the most of it. And that does come down to, it does include diversity, inclusion. So now's a really good opportunity to kind of make yourself known in different ways, not just because you've had a degree show or a final year show, but to be seen online and just to kind of really see this as a chance to perhaps change the way that students are, I suppose, promoted at the end of their course, because we've been all forced to have a lockdown. But rather than seeing it as a negative, it could be seen as, okay, right, let's just think of this as a positive. I can reach a bigger audience now. I can promote myself in a different way and and use that. And I think that's something that I would say to anyone that's graduating this year. It's a different way of doing it, but it's not necessarily a bad way or a negative thing at all.
I think that sounds like a really good summary of the opportunity here. I mean, in a way, students have had the degree show, which would be attended by a few members of the public, some industry, some mums and dads, taken away from them, but they've now got the opportunity to present their work to the whole world.
It might seem tough because they've been sort of gearing up for a number of years to have a final show where they've got people coming and there's, you know, the physical existence of their work, and they've got drinks and a party and all the rest of it. But I think it's now a good way of thinking, well, maybe that's not the only way you can do it. And is that the best way to do it? Because that's been something that we've become comfortable with. It's become traditional, become the norm, the expected. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to show what you're capable of, because you are limiting it to a certain date and audience and time, etc. And as you say, you can reach a much bigger audience now in a different way, and also you can show your creativity. So I think, yeah, that kind of thing is useful for students to know.
Just looking at your career that you've had to date, what would be the bits that you take out of that as being really useful advice for students in terms of how they might tackle the challenges of getting work?
Okay, I would say that one thing to take from it is to always be collaborative and realise that design is not a solitary role. You're always going to be working with other people and to learn from those other people. And I've done that. And those people could be friends or colleagues, but they are your network, they're your contacts. And as you said, I've benefited from having a network that has meant that I can move from one role to another, whether it's design, recruitment, or whatever. There's opportunities that come up just because you happen to know somebody. You go to an event, you go to a party, you go to a show, exhibition, and you meet people. Meeting people, getting out there, seeing what's going on, that's something that I would say is definitely worth students taking on board. That's what I've done throughout my entire career. Is I've been sociable, and not literally just going to any party, but I've got to know people in the industry by seeing what the industry is doing. And the other thing is I've always been very aware of other aspects of life in terms of fashion and art and film. I love cars, I go to galleries, I go to open air events. I try to kind of feed my creativity and kind of gathering things all the time. And I'd say don't be overwhelmed by it. It's not that you have to have a journal and prove to somebody, oh yes, you're influenced by everything around you. It's just to be conscious. I'd say that's probably my biggest tip, is be conscious of things around you and not expect everything to come to you. You know, have to make an effort, but that effort can be quite enjoyable and then quite rewarding. But it might be rewarding a year later. It might be rewarding 5 years later. You never really know.
Where do you think that curiosity comes from?
I'm the youngest of 5 children, and when I was 5 years old, we moved house. But because of that, I am very different to my brothers and sisters. I had a very different education. I still went to state schools, weren't private schools, but they were very encouraging, they were very inclusive, they were so supportive. And so I was the only one that went to university, and it gave me lots of encouragement going to those schools and made me the person I am now. My brothers and sisters, they're all fine, but they are very different personalities. But that was luck and geography. But it did make a difference who I was and what I felt I could do.
You've made the most of it, haven't you, in that sense? It's not just luck.
Yeah, you're right. I've made the most of it. And I've not sat still, because talking to you about what I've done, it makes it sound, oh my God, he's moved around so much. He's really eclectic. He doesn't know what he wants. He says, this is fantastic and exciting. And then he goes on to the next thing, and then he's only there for a year and a half. And then I think, well, hang on a minute. When I look back, there are very specific reasons why I've moved from one thing to another. And then I've done the best I can with that particular role. And then I've moved on again. But I haven't forgotten what I got from the previous role. So it's all now added up to something good. It's taken me forever to get there.
Yeah. It's the journey, isn't it? Taking you forever. That's what sometimes I feel like that. I've been doing this forever.
Actually, this is like therapy. It feels really good to talk about all this.
Oh yeah, that's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah. Well, I feel somewhat privileged to have been on that journey with you, because you were in the year above, I think, at Trent, and then I spotted you in Shoreditch and at the BIID, and here we are now. So,
yeah, you're stalking me.
Yeah, stalking me. Finally managed to catch up with you. No,
and
that's
I'm really grateful for this, because the timing of this is fantastic, because I know that we did talk about this some time ago.
Yeah.
And now I feel that it's a really good time to be out there expressing what I'm feeling, talking to people about what I'm doing, what I've done, and how we can,
Yeah, no, I think that's good, because we've got more to talk about in a way that's probably more relevant to what is the essence of what you're interested in, in terms of the new company, but also some of the issues around diversity and inclusion. I mean, it's so depressing in a sense, because probably when we were at university, we were having the same sort of debates about inclusion and police violence and all that stuff, Nelson Mandela, and you think, haven't we got anywhere in all that time?
Yeah, Coal Not Dogs, it was mid-80s.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of thing. It has actually made a difference. In the last few weeks, it's literally made a difference. And you think, we went on marches, and thinking, we're still going on marches.
I'd like to thank Simon for taking the time to talk to me. The sheer range and experience of Simon's career demonstrates that with an interior design degree, you can pretty much apply your skills to any sector or any role within the industry. The key is about making those connections and building the experience and paying attention to processes and the techniques that are relevant for each area that you're working in. His experience of recruitment is now providing a really useful tool for students and professionals within the industry to build their career and learn the skills, how to interview, how to create CVs, and take more control of their career. Particularly important is Simon's role within the debate around inclusion and diversity, and I really like his approach to stimulating communication across teams, which can help to break down barriers and give a different perspective to the working environment that we are all within. There's some links to Simon's website and his blog in the show notes, where you can find out more information about how he works and also pick up some good advice on tips on how to build your portfolio and CV and prepare for interviews. If you'd like to learn how to be a kick-ass interior designer, you can come and join us on the interior design course at the University of Plymouth. We really value professional practice skills and CV and portfolio development as part of the creative process. Thanks to Dave Clark from I Am The How for production support and advice in the setting up of this podcast. Kay Hansen for her planning support and co-hosting role for these and our educational podcasts for the University of Plymouth. And Mark Frith for the music. Next we interview Beth Harrison and Sally Rice, who'll be talking about the Virtual Interiors event, which will be launching in February 2021. I'd really like to hear your feedback on the podcast. Leave a comment or get in touch via the website or on Instagram. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.